Welcome back to From the Bookshelf for another book club episode. We will be diving back into City of Bones for chapters 4 through 8 in this part 2 episode of the City of Bones series. So before we get started, go ahead and subscribe so you can get the newest episodes of this series as soon as they come out. Go ahead and like this video, comment, let me know what you think, and I'll respond to your comments. So let's get started, shall we? We're going to be starting, of course, with chapter 4, which is Ravener. So this first thing is just kind of a weird comment as Clary is getting home with her worried about her mother being attacked. Their downstairs neighbor, Madame Dorothea, stops her and says, "And just where do you think you're going?" She's literally going into her apartment, and her neighbor's asking where she's going. I mean, is that just not weird? I mean, if I live in an apartment building, and if I were headed to my apartment and my neighbor were to ask, "Where are you going?" I'd be like, "Home? It's like, I live here. I'm sure you've seen me going in here all the time." Plus, in this instance, Clary and her mother are friends with Madame Dorothea, and they've both been living there for years. So it's just strange that she would ask where she's going when she's literally going up to her apartment. I don't know. I just found that a really strange question. I mean, if she knew something was going on and she just wanted to stop from going to the apartment, why not say something else? Like, it's just a strange interaction. All right, to the next spot on page 50. So she's looking around and she doesn't see anything. The apartment's been ransacked. There's things everywhere. Her mom's not there, and she's just looking for anything, right? So she says, for a moment she thought the door was empty and she felt a wave of relief. Then she looked down. Well, she sees a demon, and she doesn't know it's a demon. But listen to this description. A long-scaled creature with a cluster of flat black eyes set dead in the center of the front of its domed skull, something like a cross between an alligator and a centipede. So if there's something that large in your doorway, you're not going to notice it? I mean, I guess she's freaked out. She's, probably not paying close attention, but that's huge. Like, you know how big an alligator is? Like, those things are not small. So I don't know, maybe she's just freaked out and she doesn't notice it, but I almost feel like she would notice it like right away as she comes up on that doorway. Like, there's no way not to see it. That's just my opinion. But let's move on to page 52. So the Ravener demon was sent there to try to find the Moral Cup, right? So this demon says to itself, the demon's trying to decide what to do with Clary, and it says to itself, "Valentine will never know. He said nothing about a girl. Valentine will not be angry." So he's deciding on whether he should attack Clary or not. And he's thinking, Valentine never said anything about a girl. But if he's going after Jocelyn, don't you think he would have found out more about her before sending demons? Like, I almost feel like Valentine would have known that she had a child, especially if he sent people and demons after her. He would know that Clary existed. So I just find it weird that he wouldn't look into that, because Valentine, while evil, is not stupid. He's a very smart guy, like super smart, super charismatic. He knows how to win people to his side, how to look into situations, to know the best way to do things. Like, he wouldn't just not find out what's going on before jumping into the middle of it. Yeah? All right, so that's just my thought. Next, we have page 55. If you're following along at home. So this is just an interesting thing. Because in both the movie and the show, the first rune that Jace puts on Clary has always been the Iratzi, which is the healing rune. And that was always the first rune that he used. However, if you read the book, it's not. It says, so when he let go, she saw an inked black symbol like the ones that covered her skin just below the fold of her wrist. This one looked like a set of overlapping circles. What's that supposed to do? It'll hide you, he said, temporarily. Which means the first rune Clary ever got was the glamour rune. I mean, I get it. The adaptations change things, but it's just interesting that they both went with Iratzi when it was different. I find this to be canon. People think people in the fandom look at, like the movie and the show are its own kind of canon, but this is canon. This is original. This is, at any time I think of what's canon, what should and shouldn't be, that's this. When I talk about characters in the books and storylines, it's this. Like, there's so many things that the show did that changed things. Not in a good way, necessarily, but lots of people loved it. It brought people to the world of Shadowhunters, so we won't go into that right now. Let's get back to the book, because we can talk about the show later. So now we'll move on to chapter 5, Clave and Covenant. We'll be on page 57. So let's see, 57. So we're looking at a little more foreshadowing of Clary's abilities and things that she's able to do that make her special. Back to that, she's different. And she's not just different from Simon as a Mundae, she's a little bit different from Shadowhunters as well. So, she has this dream. She saw her mother lying in a hospital bed, eyes like bruises in her white face. She saw Luke standing atop a pile of bones, Jace with white feathered wings sprouting out of his back, Simon with crosses burned into the palms of his hands, angels falling and burning, falling out of the sky. So when you first read this, if you've never read anything else in the series, see this as a dream, kind of a crazy dream. But having read further, you know that this is more than just a dream. Like, so much of the stuff she sees is happening or does happen in one way or another. So it's just this ability that she's connected to, that she can sometimes see things that will happen in the future. All right, so next we're still on page 57. So I'm going to read. This is Isabelle and Alec talking, and I'm going to read it real quick. So, I know, little thing, isn't she? Jace said she killed a Ravener. Yeah, I thought she was a pixie the first time we saw her. She's not pretty enough to be a pixie, though. Well, nobody looks their best with demon poison in their veins. Is Hodge going to call on the brothers? I hope not. They give me the creeps. So, the thing is there's no discerning pronouns or names in this conversation. It's just a back and forth, and you have no idea who's talking. Like, there's no, through the whole thing, there's a lot longer in this section, and through the whole thing you have no idea which one's talking, which one's saying these things. I find this interesting, that, and you can't even really pick it out either. I mean, except maybe the fact that one of them says a little thing, and Simon, Alec likes to call her little girl, so that might be a thing. But it's just interesting that that you can't really tell them apart in that sense, because a lot of times you can tell characters apart simply by how they talk to each other and the things they say. So then let's move on to page 59. So Isabelle and Clary are talking about the demon that Clary just killed. And Isabelle says, but you're a Mundae. You're a mundane. How could you kill a demon, right? So Clary says, amazing, isn't it? Clary said, savoring the look of thinly disguised amazement on Isabel's face. So she just kind of like throws it at her. Yeah, I know. Crazy, right? Just find that funny. Sassy Clary. That's why I like her. She don't put up with no one's shit. No one's. All right. So page 60. So we have this moment where Clary and Isabelle are talking about Jace. And Isabelle says this, which Clary finds weird, and so do I, and I'll explain in a second. Oh, he's rude to everyone, said Isabelle airily. It's what makes him so damn sexy. That, and he's killed more demons than anyone else his age. Clary looked perplexed. Isn't he your brother? And I mean, he's not. He's kind of an adopted Lightwood. He's not really one of their brothers, but he's been their brother since he was 10. Since Isabelle was like 9 years old. He's been their brother for about 7 years. So he's her brother. And later on, they even say, like, he's my brother. I don't look him at as anything but my brother. So the fact that she's, like, talking about him like this, like she would even consider having a relationship, is just weird. And a bit creepy. It's more weird than something that happened a little later on. We won't talk about that. We'll go back to that later. Try not to do too many spoilers. I know sometimes I will because things relate to others later on in the series. But, yeah, the idea of Isabelle and Jace, even if it's just like as a like kind of like a joke, or like he's not really my brother, he's her brother. Like, it doesn't matter that they're not biologically related. He's her brother. Period. So let's move on to chapter 65. Or not chapter. There's not that many chapters. Let's move on to page 65. So there we have this description of the library, and I love this, that Cassandra Clare goes into so much detail about the library and like books and all of that. It's beautiful. The library was circular, with a ceiling that tapered to a point, as if it had been built inside a tower. The walls were lined with books, the shelves so high that tall ladders set on casters were placed along them at intervals. These were no ordinary books either. They were books bound in leather and velvet, clasped with sturdy-looking locks and hinges made of brass and silver. Their spines were studded with dully glowing jewels and illuminated with gold script. They looked worn in a way that made it clear that these books were not just old, but well used and had been loved. Like, the idea that this library is kind of so important that it would have that much of a description. It's amazing, and I love it. I love libraries. I pretty much own a library, so not even exaggerating. So let's move on. There wasn't really anything to talk about out. I just thought it was cool. So page 68. So this is just kind of a look at the way Alec and Isabelle were towards Clary in the beginning. Like, they were not nice at all. Like, they're so not nice. It's like ridiculous how unnice they were. So Hodge is asking Alec if he's suggesting that Clary didn't kill the demon and that Jace is just making it up, which Jace wouldn't do. He wouldn't lie about that. If he killed it, he'd say so. But Alec says, of course she didn't. Look at her. She's a Mundy, Hodge, and a little kid at that. There's no way she took on a Ravener. And then when Clary says she's the same age as Isabelle, his sister, he says this: Isabelle hails from one of the greatest Shadowhunter dynasties in history. This girl, on the other hand, hails from New Jersey. I mean, like, can we be any more, like, self-centered and a little bit entitled? Like, my sister's better than her because she's, like, from this really great Shadowhunter family. Hate to tell you this, Alec, but so is Clary. Fairchild family is just as great as those light woods. Maybe you should get to know a person before you decide whether they're terrible or whether they're good. And just because, and even if she wasn't from one of the great Shadowhunter families, that's no reason to be a jerk. Especially when you're just jealous. Because you are. Of Jace's attention. This isn't about Claire, you're not really. Alright, so we are gonna move on to page 78. This is great because Shadowhunters are all like, we're better than all of the demon races, which that's like anybody, like vampires, werewolves, warlocks, because they have demon blood in them and stuff at some point. So do you know how Shadowhunters were created? Let me tell you. So when humans were being overrun by demon invasions from other worlds, a warlock summoned the angel Raziel, who mixed some of his own blood with the blood of men in a cup and gave it to those men to drink. A warlock summoned the angel Raziel, who then created Shadowhunters. A warlock is the reason Shadowhunters exist. I mean, how ironic is that? Shadowhunters hating on those warlocks, and it's like, you wouldn't exist if it weren't for that warlock. Just saying. Just saying. Alright, so, chapter 6, The Forsaken. Page 83. So, I was reading this, and I found that Alec has this weird overreaction to, like, kind of like an innocent comment. Clary's had just seen them use their seraph blades, which come alive when they use an angel's name, and then they go back, like, into their little, like, handheld tubes. Like, the knife or the sword, the sharp end isn't always out. So Clary says, they don't look like knives. How did you make them? Magic? Alec looked horrified. I mean, just because she doesn't understand magic in the same way, Jace says, the funny thing about Mundies is how obsessed they are with magic for people who don't know what the word means. I mean, they know what the word means. It's just, it's different to them than it is to Shadowhunters. So the fact that she sees a seraph blade magically come to life when he uses the name of an angel, to anyone that's not a Shadowhunter, that looks like magic. And it is. Angelic magic. Angelic magic. Like, it's just not magic as Shadowhunter sees it, because they don't see themselves being able to use magic, even though they are able to draw runes on themselves to give them special abilities. I mean, that's not magic either. Just saying. So, page 85. We have this moment where just recently Clary slaps Jace because he said that when he put that rune on her, he wasn't 100% certain that she was a Shadowhunter, and if she hadn't been, it would have turned her into a Forsaken, which is horrible, and she'd be dead, right? And so we see this. It says, Jace spent the train ride to Brooklyn wrapped in an angry silence. So he's angry that she slapped him. And yeah, maybe she shouldn't have slapped him, but maybe he should have asked before possibly doing something that could have killed her. Because there's a huge difference between being slapped and possibly ending up dead. Right? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'd much rather be slapped than dead. Alright, page 90. So we have this moment that's a little confusing to me. They're at Claire's apartment. They're going in, and she reaches for the doorknob to her bedroom, and it says, it was cold in her hand, so cold it nearly hurt, like touching an icicle with your bare skin. I don't really understand why it's cold. It doesn't really explain it, and it just seems out of place. I mean, as from what I remember, I don't remember demons or anything like that being able to cause things to go cold like that. So it just seems strange that that's suddenly happening. So then we have page 94. So then we have this. An image rose in Clary's mind. Her mother's back, not quite covered by her bathing suit top, the blades of her shoulders and curves of her spine dappled with narrow white marks. It was something she had seen in a dream. Her mother's back didn't really look like that. She knew, but the image nagged at her. So she has this image of her mother with the scars, the rune scars, right? But why is she remembering them in dreams? It seems like it keeps coming back to this, and I don't know why it bugs me so much. But the glamour doesn't hide it. The taking away her sight wouldn't hide it. So it's just weird that they keep bringing it up so much. So I think that's the last instance that we'll talk about that. But I found it so strange. So then we have chapter 7, the 5-dimensional door. Page 101. Clary is constantly, this is Clary and Simon, he's not here, but throughout this series, Clary and Simon are both making pop culture references to Shadowhunters, and they have no idea what they're talking about, right? And it just cracks me up. Like we see here, Jace says to Clary, "Stay away from my blades. In fact, don't touch any of my weapons without my permission." "Well, there goes my plans for selling them on eBay," Clary muttered. "Selling them on what?" That's Jace. "What's eBay? Where would you sell them?" I just think it's funny that she makes this kind of like sarcastic joke that literally anybody would get, but because he's Jace and he doesn't understand like mundane pop culture, that he has no idea what eBay is, like hard pressed to find anybody who doesn't know what eBay is. But there you have it. Page 104. So we have our Dorothea, Madame Dorothea, Clary's downstairs neighbor, who we just found out was had parents who were warlocks. Since warlocks can't have children themselves, they adopted her, and yet Jace has no idea who she is, or has never heard of her or her parents. But as we've seen in future books or the prequel series, the Clave, which is the Shadowhunter government and all of that, keep very detailed records of like warlocks and where they live and them adopting children and stuff like that, as we've actually is very pertinent to the Infernal Devices, which is the prequel series to this set in the 1800s. So if they know every little thing like that, why don't they know about her and her warlock parents? So it's just kind of strange to me that they don't know about Madame Dorothea when previously they knew a lot about another set of warlocks who adopted a mundane child. So I just find it interesting that Jace has no idea who she is and all of that. But let's move forward to page 109. So we have the 5-dimensional door, right? It allows people who go through it to go to pretty much wherever they want. Clary decides, because she's Clary and she doesn't think sometimes, to go through it to see where her mother was gonna go. But Jace doesn't quite get to her in time, and the two of them tumble through the door. But the amount of time that it takes to open a door and then go through it, Jace, being not just a shadow hunter, but an extremely fast shadow hunter, faster than any other shadow hunter, like ever, couldn't stop her from opening that door and going through it. Don't think so. Like, Jace is like ridiculously fast, which we see later on in this book. So how is that not possible? Chapter 8, Weapon of Choice, page 112. So the door takes Clary to just outside Luke's bookshop, as he owns a bookshop. And Jace asks what she wants to do, and Clary just says, "Leave, I guess. Luke told me not to come here." Like every weird thing that's going on. Your mother's missing. Luke tells you he wants nothing to do with you. Leave him alone. You just met Shadowhunters. You're seeing demons, and you don't think maybe I should just go bother Luke anyway, despite the fact that he doesn't want me around. Like, maybe something weird's going on. He's acting weird. My life is weird. Maybe something's happening we don't understand. Like, I feel like Clary's been questioning everything, yet she doesn't question this. I don't know. I feel like Clary would. Or at least she should. On page 115. So this is just, it's Simon being Simon. And he makes up this story in his head. Luke said that Luke told Simon that Clary was visiting a sick relative. And in Simon's mind, he makes up this huge story. Do you have a great Aunt Matilda who contracted avian flu and needed to be nursed back to health? Clary's like, did Luke really say that? And he's like, no, I just made that up. It's like, why even say it then? It's like, Simon's so ridiculous. Like, he felt the need to actually put that out there. Like, do you really have all this? Even though I just literally made it up in my head because nobody actually said it. Simon is like the comic relief in like the funny sense. Whereas Jace is the comic relief in the sarcastic sense. I understand that because I have a very sarcastic sense of humor. And a lot of people don't get it. But that's okay. That won't stop me. Page 121. This one is just more of confused about a description. Like, I don't understand what it's supposed to mean. Clary is changing into some of her own clothes because she has clothes of hers over at Luke's house. And she says that her pants are soft as worn paper. What is worn paper supposed to feel like? Like, I wouldn't imagine that paper would be soft. Or is that just me? No. Yeah. Let me know if you know what that's supposed to mean. Okay, last one, page 128. So, Clary just assumes that Luke doesn't want anything to do with her. And here we see this, right? Luke says, I have no idea where the girl is, but for what it's worth, I guess she's dead. She'd have turned up by now otherwise. Anyway, she's not much of a danger. She's a 15-year-old. She's never heard of Valentine, and she doesn't believe in demons. So we see Luke lying to protect her because he knows she's alive. He knows where she is. He knows why she hasn't turned up. So he knows all these things, and he's telling them, well, I don't know. I don't know all these things. She just showed up by now. But he told her not to show up. So, I mean, he's lying to protect her. He's lying to protect her. And yet she still doesn't question the way he acted. Because Clary knows that he's lying. Because Clary knows that he knows where she is. Because she called him. So, I mean, I just feel like Clary's not using her brain a little bit. But she doesn't understand what's going on. So she's allowed to make stupid choices every now and again. It's one of the reasons a lot of people don't like her character. The fact that she makes stupid decisions. But she doesn't understand the shadow world or the Shadowhunter world. And I don't think it's really her fault to blame her for some of those decisions. Because she's trying to do the best that she can based on the information she has. And I think that's what needs to be judged on. Don't judge her for making decisions based on like Shadowhunters. But judge her based on the decisions she's making based on what she knows of Shadowhunters. I think she's a great character. I love her. She's one of my favorites. So that's it for this section. Stay tuned, and we'll be getting into part 3 next week. And if you're watching this later on, you can go ahead and click through to that. But if you're watching this new, I will have that up next week, and I'll see you then.